And we're back with part 2 of our Q&A session. Got some questions here, I'll just jump right in. Dimitri Bobby asks, why are you stubborn and crazy? Fair question, considering I labeled the last video, I'm stubborn and crazy, ask me anything. By that I just mean that you really have to just stay the course and keep on swinging. A lot of bumps along the road are going to present themselves, things take time when you're trying to do what we're doing, and I mean, you just got to dig in and keep going. Otherwise, it's just not going to get done because it's always going to be a lot harder than you think. It's taken us 5 years to get to where we are now from the first time when we started. We didn't think it would take nearly that long. We thought it'd be a lot easier than it turned out to be, but we hung in there, and here we are. Things are going great. The building's up now, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So as far as being crazy goes, that's just how I refer to my unreasonable faith in myself. I mean, you can't always just work with the math. You can't just look at the equation and say, okay, does this add up to success at the end? Great, then I'll start. Because you don't have all of the numbers to work with when you're starting. It's like you're driving at night. You don't see the road all the way to your destination. You only see a certain, a few meters in front of you. And that's okay. That's all you really need to see. You just have to trust that if you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep dealing with what you have to deal with, if you're headed in the right direction, if you're on the right road, you'll get to where you're trying to get. So that's sort of a faith thing, and that's learned. I guess it starts in childhood. It's your self-esteem. It's being able to develop a track record and look back and say, see, I actually can get stuff done when I stick to it. It doesn't have to add up. It doesn't have to make sense to other people. Sometimes you just know yourself what you're capable of, and that's enough to keep going. Vic Lee asks, are you on the road to citizenship? I guess I am. I'm not particularly trying to be. To really get things done here, to have full rights as a Chilean, quote unquote, you really just need permanent residency. You don't need citizenship. And I have a Canadian passport already, which is pretty good, and it doesn't seem to be a liability yet, so I really have no need for a Chilean passport. I mean, I'm going to stick around here, and if one happens to drop in my lap, so be it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go get one. I'm happy enough with the permanent residency. Christian Warwick asks, how chilly is Chile? I've never heard that one before. Where we are right now, at this very moment, it's not very chilly at all. But it's a very long country. Chile is as long from north to south as the United States is wide. So, in the north, we've got the Atacama Desert. Very hot. Cold at night. If you keep going south, you'll see all kinds of different climates, just like the U.S., Santiago's at the 33rd degree of latitude on the southern hemisphere. And that's a mirror image of where Los Angeles is. So you can imagine driving north from Los Angeles. As you keep going towards Alaska, it gets cooler and cooler. Same deal with Chile. Once you head south from Santiago, it gets cooler and cooler. Where we are in Valdivia is very similar to basically the northern edge of California, getting into Oregon. So it rains a lot here. We're right by the coast. It's very mild and temperate. It doesn't snow. It does freeze once in a while. If you just head east a short distance into the mountains, it does freeze. You get frost, and they do get snow. If you keep going south, it gets colder and colder, right into Alaska-type climate. So anyway, there's something for everyone, regardless of what kind of climate you like. Here in Valdivia, it rains for half of the year in what is considered winter. So a lot of our members at Fort Galt like the idea of splitting their year between wherever they are and here. So when it's summer up there, it's winter down here, and vice versa. You don't necessarily have to experience winter at all if you don't want to, if you want to keep bouncing back and forth between hemispheres. He also asks about the tax system, corporate tax, value-added tax, all that fun stuff. Well, that's easily Googleable. I can put a link down below to some resources to show you all the numbers. Generally speaking, though, it's very similar to the U.S. As far as tax rates and such, it's pretty similar to the U.S. One noticeable difference in everyday life is that there's a tax on luxury goods that are incoming, so electronics, for instance, are more expensive down here. They're hit with a tariff. Books too, actually. Books are expensive down here. But overall, it's pretty comparable. He asks, how business friendly is Chile? That's an interesting question because it has a reputation for being very business friendly, and definitely compared to the rest of Latin America, it is. It's very stable. The law is on your side in terms of property rights. But there is a lot of bureaucracy. They love their stamps and their signatures and their notaries and their fingerprints and standing in line waiting for stuff and that kind of thing. You just gotta kind of bite down and get used to it, or have someone help you, because it does get irritating at times. A friend of mine likes to say that in the US you get cut with a giant blow that will cripple you, whereas in Chile you get just 1,000 tiny cuts that irritate you every day. So that kind of expresses what it's like. There's a lot of room for mobility here. Like, kids aren't taught this though in school. They're taught this sort of learned helplessness is baked into the system, where if you're born low class, you're expected to stay low class, even though they have every opportunity to move. There is a classism that's based into everything, or baked in. And so, I mean, your right to earn your living is right in the Constitution. Like, if you want to set up a stall and start selling stuff, you can do that. And a lot of people do. And that's kind of the extent of entrepreneurship that's in the consciousness here, is like jumping on a bus and selling things to people on the bus. That's as far as it goes. As far as like startup culture goes, there's really not much of it down here. The government does throw money at this Startup Chile program, which makes it look like there's a startup culture. But I haven't seen a lot in terms of real results coming out of that. I've seen a lot of little showcases. They'll take somebody, they'll give them some money to build his little product or whatever he's pitching, and I don't think a lot of scrutiny goes into sorting what's worth investing in and what's not. It's kind of a showpiece. It's trying to make Chile look business friendly to the outside world. But that hasn't really helped the culture much. For instance, a friend of mine tried to start a co-work here in Valdivia, and people didn't even know what a co-work was. So it turned out that prospect really wasn't even worth doing. People don't think of working together with other entrepreneurs and professionals in a shared office space. Because if you're trying to be a quote-unquote professional, like a lawyer or something, then they want the prestige of having their own office, and if they do share with somebody, they both pretend that it's their own office, and they bring clients in separately so that they don't see each other and stuff like that. It's all about keeping up appearances and pretending that you have more than you do. There's no appreciation of starting with nothing and building up that grind, that lean startup life. That's not a thing here yet. Hopefully it will be. Hopefully we can help, kind of spread that idea just by demonstrating it with Fort Galt, because we're all about that here. A co-work is part of the grand design that we've got. That's kind of the whole point, is Fort Galt is a place for people to live and work together. A place for young startup kids to mix in with the older, more seasoned professionals, that have wisdom to share and that sort of thing. Just create that sort of ecosystem that's mutually supportive. So hopefully our little disease spreads and we'll see more people copying us, but time will tell. He also asks, what about free speech? Does the government meddle with what you say and think? Well, I haven't seen a lot of that from the government. There are like meddlesome college kids, that get into groups and protest things, usually just copycat stuff. Like they'll see something crazy going on in the US and then they'll do a sympathy protest or a copycat protest or something. And it's usually just a handful of angry young kids. But no, the government really doesn't concern itself with policing your speech or anything. There isn't much PC culture down here. It's not like in Canada where it's against the law, to utter hate speech, however that's defined. Down here, it's a lot more freewheeling and lax in those terms. It could change someday, I don't know, but so far it's pretty lax. And that's the end of the questions on this post. So if anyone else has one, by all means, fire away. I will get to them as soon as a few have stacked up, just like I did with this. And now I'm going to go and put out a newsletter here. So make sure you're on the Fort Galt mailing list. If you're not, go to fortgalt.com, FORTGALT.com, sign up, and you'll get the next one. Till then, see you later.